Our fundamentalist crusade that holds God above our heads to keep the masses afraid. We've surrendered sensibility to a morbid spirituality, shackled by what passes as Christian morality.
Hey there, Roxada here. So in the last video I did on the Vigilant Christian, he mentioned this gem. Well, I decided to tackle this one too. Apparently he thinks NASA is some Nazi satanic Illuminati conspiracy, and he says this video exposes it. Well, let's see what evidence he has for this claim, shall we?
If we really want to understand what's going on in space today and what's happening with the plan to put weapons in space, I think it's instructive to go back and understand the origins of the U.S. space program. And to do that, you have to go back to Nazi Germany. Hitler recruited a brilliant young rocket scientist by the name of Wernher von Braun, who had a weekend rocket club, to come to work for the Nazis to build the V-1 and V-2 rockets that were used to terrorize the cities of London and Paris and Brussels towards the end of World War II. And for von Braun and his team, they set up along the Baltic Sea a place called Peenemünde. It was a research and development center for the Nazi rocket operation. And to this place at Peenemünde, the Nazis brought thousands of Jews and French resistance fighters to serve as prisoners, essentially slaves, to build this production effort. Well, the British found out about it, went in and bombed the entire operation. And so the Nazis said, we've got to move to a more secure location. And down inside of central Germany, there's a mountain chain called the Harz Mountains. And in that mountain, there's a huge tunnel where the Nazis were storing military hardware. Well, they cleared the whole thing out, moved the entire rocket operation into the tunnel, named it Mittelwerk. And just outside the mountain tunnel at Mittelwerk, the Nazis built a brand new concentration camp called Dora. And to Dora, the Nazis brought 40,000 Jews, gypsies, French resistance fighters, homosexuals, communists, even a black American GI were brought there to serve as slaves for the operation. Well, you know, immediately after the war, the U.S. and the Allies created the Nuremberg trials, at which time we brought the Nazis to justice for their crimes against humanity. But 1,500 of the top Nazis never went to trial. They were smuggled into the United States by the U.S. military under a program called Operation Paperclip.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right here. Now, this guy isn't telling the whole truth. Operation Paperclip did in fact happen, but what this guy is neglecting to mention is that it wasn't 1,500 Nazis. It was 1,500 scientists, engineers, and technicians from not just Germany, but several other countries. Now, when Truman gave his formal order to execute the program in August of 1945, he expressly excluded anyone found to, quote, have been a member of the Nazi Party and more than a nominal participant in its activities or an active supporter of Nazi militarism, end quote. Now, because of their work on the V-1 and V-2 rockets, von Braun, Kurt Debus, Arthur Rudolph, and Hubertus Strugold were classified as, quote, they were classified as a, quote, menace to the Allied forces, end quote. So yes, they did have to have their records erased and new ones forged. Now, one other thing this guy is leaving out is the reason for Operation Paperclip. Now, this is the point in history where the Cold War with Russia was brewing. Hadn't really gone into effect, but this was the very beginning stage of it. This was a race between the U.S. and the USSR to try to seize as many of these scientists, engineers, technicians, and technology as possible. Because of people like von Braun, Germany was the world leader in rocket technology. They were also the first country to develop the jet fighter, and they were also working on nuclear capabilities. Now, both the U.S. and Russia understood the benefits of having these people working for them. For example, when Heinz Schlick was captured off the coast of Newfoundland, the cargo of the sub that he was on contained plans for the HS-293 glider bomb, the V-1 glide bomb, which was the forerunner to the cruise missile that our military has been using for decades, the V-2 rocket, which was the forerunner of the Scud missile, which saved many of our troops in the first Gulf War, and also the Messerschmitt 262 fighter, the first combat jet fighter, low observable submarine designs, and lead-lined boxes containing 1,200 pounds of uranium oxide, which is a key ingredient in atom bombs. He was also an electronic warfare expert. Now, this guy is saying that this information and these people's brilliance should have fallen into Russia's hands. Just sit back and think about the kind of world we would be living in if Operation Paperclip had not taken place and Russia got their hands on those people and technologies. Now, I got this information after a simple Google search, and the links to the pages are in the description below. I would like to see these guys' citations.
Smuggled in through Boston and West Palm Beach, Florida. And Werner von Braun and his rocket team, 100 of them, along with 100 copies of the V-2 rocket, were sent to Huntsville, Alabama, where von Braun became the first director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. What's interesting is the other 1,400 Nazis. Who were they?
They weren't Nazis. They were scientists, engineers, and technicians, and doctors also.
Well, some of them were brought to the United States to work for the CIA. Others were brought to the United States to do the LSD drug experiments and the MK Ultra mind experiments during the 1960s, where people were jumping out of windows. Some of the Nazi scientists that in Germany had been taking Jews and putting them in freezing temperatures to see how the body would react to that were sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio and were put in charge of the U.S. military flight medicine program. And so when you take 1,500 of the top Nazi scientists and essentially seed the military-industrial complex, the question I have is, do they bring with them an ideological contamination?
Well, no, because of Truman's express orders not to bring Nazis into the program.
Well, not only did von Braun go to work for NASA.
Oh, as a little side note to von Braun, too, he was actually arrested by the Nazis. He was called a communist sympathizer and accused of attempting to sabotage the V-2 program. Also, because von Braun regularly piloted his plane, which was provided by the government, they feared he might be able to escape to England. He was arrested by the Gestapo March 14th of 1944 and taken to a Gestapo cell in Poland. He was released because Albert Speer, who at the time was the Reichsminister for munitions and war production, convinced Hitler to reinstate Braun so that they could continue with the V-2 program, and also if it was turned into the V-4 program, that would be impossible without von Braun's leadership. So, yeah, he was not a Nazi. In fact, like I just said, he was arrested by the Nazis. So, yeah. Just remember that.
But the guy that was in charge of the V-2 flight test program up at Peenemünde along the Baltic Sea, a guy by the name of Kurt Wiebes, became the first director of the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And then the man that recruited von Braun, Major General Walter Dornberger, the guy that was sent by Hitler to recruit von Braun to come to work for the Nazis, he became vice president of Bell Aerosystems Corporation in New York that made its riches building the helicopters for the war in Vietnam. In fact, in 1958, Dornberger testified before the United States Congress, saying that America's top space priority should be to, quote, conquer, occupy, keep, and utilize space between the Earth and the Moon. And in fact, later on, in a speech before a national missile industry conference, Dornberger told the assembled, "Gentlemen, I didn't come to this country to lose the Third World War. I lost two already." And then finally, the man that was in charge of production at Mittelwerk, inside the mountain tunnel there in Germany, Arthur Rudolph, he became the first project director of the NASA Saturn V rocket program that took the United States to the moon. And so these are the essential origins of the U.S. space program.
So what? So exactly where is the problem? We brought brilliant people back to the U.S. after Germany was defeated in World War II. It's not some conspiracy or secret. I mean, for fuck's sake, you can go to the CIA's website and they've got a whole page on Operation Paperclip, which I've even bothered to post in the description. Conspiracies are supposed to be secrets, and this is anything but a secret. These people that were brought back were some of the most brilliant people of their time, especially when it came to rocketry. Now, does this guy in Mario comprehend what these people did for us? These are the people that took us into space, put us on the moon, are responsible for us sending robots to Mars. The New Horizons probe that just gave us our first good looks at Pluto, Charon, and Nix. The Voyager mission, which gave us our first good looks at Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, along with some of Jupiter and Saturn's moons and Neptune's moon Triton. Not to mention that as we sit here, those probes are actually leaving our solar system and heading into interstellar space. Not to mention those people were responsible for getting things like satellites into space that we use every day for things like GPS, cell phones, TV, and weather forecasting. People like this guy in Mario reap the benefits of what these scientists did on a daily basis and then have the arrogance to criticize them and how they were brought to the U.S. And one more thing before I wrap this little ramble up. As I mentioned earlier that Operation Paperclip was a race between the U.S. and Russia to get a hold of these scientists and engineers. Just remember who was the leader of Russia at the time. Does this guy in Mario think that it would be better to have let these people fall into Stalin's hands? What do you think would have happened then?
And the Space Command put out a planning document a few years ago called Vision for 2020. And on the cover of it, you see a satellite hitting targets on the Earth below. Let's take a look at some of the language in this so-called Vision for 2020. The Space Command says that in the future, because of corporate globalization of the world economy, they expect that there's going to be a widening gap between the haves and the have-nots, between the rich and the poor all over the world. And as a result of that, the Pentagon predicts that there's going to be more and more regional instability around the world because people that are under the boot of these multinational corporations are going to organize. They're going to try to organize unions. They're going to organize to get these corporations from controlling their governments.
Okay, so I looked up Vision for 2020. Links in the description, as usual. The first part of this gives a very quick little historic perspective about why space will probably become a medium of warfare. Then it talks about Joint Vision 2010. This is talking about how space is important for things like logistics and situational awareness, which Includes things like communication, navigation, timely and accurate missile warnings, weather, reconnaissance, etc. Then we get to the future trends section, which is the one this guy just quote mined from. The section actually says, although unlikely to be challenged by a global peer competitor, the United States will continue to be challenged regionally. The globalization of the world economy will also continue with a widening between the haves and have-nots. Accelerating rates of technological development will be increasingly driven by the commercial sector, not the military. Increased weapons lethality and precision will lead to new operational doctrine. Information-intensive military force structures will lead to a highly dynamic operations tempo. And that's it for future trends. I don't know where this guy's getting anything about insurrection and stuff like that. Then it goes on to talk about space trends and implications for U.S. Space Command. Now, where in this entire thing does it mention anything about organizing against corporations, insurrections, fighting an oligarchy, or any of the other stuff this guy's saying? All this thing is talking about is that space is probably going to be the next theater of warfare, and to protect national interest and investments, which, might I add, are the sole purpose for military since man first started fighting each other over resources and territory. People like this guy and Mario are preying, and that's preying with an E, not an A, on people who will just buy into anything that they've been told and won't bother to do 5 minutes worth of research into the claims that are being made.
And the Pentagon says, we can't put a Marine on every single street corner of the world to suppress these populations. But with space technology in place, we'll be able to see everything, hear everything, and essentially target everything in every place on the Earth. And the Vision 2020 says that space superiority will emerge as an essential element of battlefield success in future warfare.
So yes, space is probably going to become an even larger playing field in warfare. The U.S. isn't talking about wanting boots on the ground wherever there's some minor skirmish or conflict. What this guy fails to understand is that information is key to national security and defense. Now, using satellites to monitor potential threats is the best way to go about it. You don't have to worry about putting operatives out there to get caught and create international incidents. You don't have to worry about putting people in dangerous situations. Why is using satellites to monitor something like troop movement a bad thing? Would he rather see people be put in harm's way in order to get the same information? Well, let's see what Mario has to say about all this.
Everyone, it's Vigilant Christian Mario, and you're here for another edition of Satanic Illuminati New World Order Exposed. In today's video, I wanted to give you my thoughts on the role that NASA,
it's pronounced NASA,
is going to be playing in the establishment of the New World Order. If you haven't seen the live show that me and Brother Alex did last night, we had a surprise Vigilant Christian podcast. I'll leave it linked up in the description section below. In it, we talked about NASA a little bit and played a video by Brother Gons on the announcement of them, going to Mars and all these mysteries and things that they found on Mars, etc. So if you haven't seen that, check it out below. But I wanted to go a little bit more in depth today. As you just heard, NASA was started because of Operation Paperclip. The Nazis didn't lose, they moved to America. Alright, so Arthur, Rudolph, all these different guys here, Herman, Oberth, Nazi, NASA Associate Administrator, NASA Rocket Scientist, etc. Alright, so this should be alarming to any New World Order researcher. The Project Paperclip was responsible for bringing over Nazi scientists, and they started doing things like MK Ultra, organizing NASA, etc.
Okay, well, we've already established that these scientists, engineers, technicians, doctors, what have you. They were not Nazis. They were German, yes, many of them. Some were from other countries. They weren't Nazis. There is a difference between being German and being a Nazi. Not all Germans were Nazis.
Now, for those of you who don't know, it's actually a word that's found in the Bible, NASA, all right? Or it can also mean NASA, or whatever, in its negative connotation. So what does it mean? Okay, well, NASA, it means to lift, carry, or take up, right? Which would be an appropriate word for, the space program. It takes up, carries up, to lift up. All right, but also notice this. Let's take a look at the definition in its negative way. All right, so it means to beguile or deceive. Come deceitfully, deceived, deluded, utterly deceive. It is a word that describes in the Hebrew a strong, strong delusion and a strong, strong deception.
Now, I could see how you could make that leap to the negative Hebrew connotation if it was spelled the same fucking way, but it's not.
And I mean, you couldn't expect any less from these guys who are Nazi Satanist. All right, for those of you who don't know, the Nazis were Luciferian occultists, and they were under the disguise. Hitler disguised himself as a Christian, a Catholic, but obviously he wasn't. He had Madame Blavatsky's book, which she's a Luciferian theosophist, next to his bed.
No, Hitler was a Catholic, and he talked about God in many of his speeches. The SS belt buckles were even inscribed with Gott mit uns, which means God with us. Also, yes, Hitler did have a fascination with the occult, but that doesn't mean he actually believed it. Yes, he did have people studying it and looking into it, but again, that doesn't mean he bought into it. As far as what book he had by his bed, how in the hell would you know? How would anybody know nowadays? Just because you're fascinated with something, or curious, or interested in it, doesn't mean you actually believe it. I have Christian Bibles. I had a copy of LaVey's Satanic Bible around here, but it disappeared at some point. I've got a Book of Mormon, a Quran, and many books on Celtic, Norse, Greek, and Roman mythology. Does that mean I believe it? No. Does that mean I find it interesting and fascinating? Yeah. So, to you, Mario, does this mean that I believe it all? In your mind, do I buy into all of that just because I have a fascination and an interest in these stories and I own, these different books?
And he was into these type of things, MK Ultra, doing all sorts of crazy experiments, trying to create the superhuman race, the Aryan race on Earth, which the elite are still trying to do. That's still part of the agenda because the Nazis didn't lose. They moved to America. They went in underground in secret, and they're working as a shadow government to continue the plans that Hitler started a long time ago.
Wow. Okay. So, where are these concentration camps? Where are they rounding up people and putting them in said concentration camps? Where are the human experiments that monster Mengele started taking place? Where are the eugenics experiments taking place? Where is your evidence for any of this? You say that this is happening because German scientists were brought here after Germany fell and that the U.S. is continuing what Hitler started. If that were really the agenda, wouldn't it have made a lot more sense to have just allied with Germany during World War II and won for the opposite side? Why go through all this shit just to continue what he had started? It really makes absolutely no sense.
This is the New World Order, okay? And you really just need to wake up to that. Another thing as well here is if you go to, Google images and you put NASA occult symbolism, you're going to see that their missions always use occult symbolism. Apollo, a representation of a god, fallen god. We have the sorcerer over here, special projects. The dragon, literally three-headed cobra, circling the globe, etc. So you can do your own research, but there's a ton of occult symbolism when you search this out.
Oh, for fuck's sake, really? Well, let's see. Who are the planets named after? Roman gods. So how would naming a mission or program something like Apollo, Mercury, or Juno be some kind of leap into occultism? How would having a representation of the god Apollo on the Apollo mission patch be a sign of the occult? And would you really expect them to have a patch that didn't represent the program at all just because Apollo was some ancient pagan god?
But what I wanted to talk today about is a little bit different than what you're hearing with most of the research. A lot of people are getting into this flat Earth versus sphere Earth versus all these other models, and I really do believe it's kind of a waste of time, all right? There's no way I believe we can even prove this. I mean, we'd have to break into NASA and discover their secret documents and stuff like that.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you going flat earther and saying that it's some kind of NASA conspiracy that the Earth is round? Technically it's an oblique spheroid. What? Oh boy.
And I think it can be a great distraction to many of us. But what I wanted to talk about today was something that I do believe is extremely alarming, and that is the fact that they are going to be using weaponized technology in space to enslave us.
Well, first off, the whole idea of Star Wars technology is something that Reagan brought up back in the early 80s. And why would you think that anyone would try to use space to control people? The whole idea behind the Star Wars technology idea was as a missile defense system for Russia. So when they would launch their intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads, we could shoot them down from satellites shoot them down using satellites in space, because of the arc that they would have to get. They'd be basically right at the border of space. But yeah, how would they be using satellites to control people?
They are trying to create a Big Brother program. This is why Google, Facebook, all these social media platforms are monitoring us. I mean, on your cell phone, if you have an iPhone or some other phone that takes the fingerprint, you literally just gave them your fingerprint, I'm sure of it. Notice on Facebook now, when you upload a picture, they're scanning our faces, so they're going to have all our profiles down to fingerprints, face recognition. Now they're talking about they have been talking about, and they have been doing this for a while now, putting weapons into space.
So all those social media things and smartphones that you just mentioned, you fucking use. If you're worried that all this stuff is being collected by some big brother and that it's going to be used against you, why in the ever-living fuck would you use it? As far as your claim about weapons in space, what weapons? How are they being used? You would think with the U.S. being involved in 2 wars for well over a decade, someone would have, I don't know, maybe decided to use one of those weapons by now. What kind of weapons do you think are up there? Like I mentioned earlier, the whole idea of Star Wars technology was brought up in the 1980s by Reagan as a defense system against Russia's intercontinental ballistic missiles. It was an idea that really didn't go any farther than being an idea and talked about.
Brother Gons did fantastic work on this. Weapons of the Antichrist. Was Athena deployed in space? I'll leave this video including, and also a presentation he did called Weapons of Antichrist. I think this is the major concern here and what we really should be investigating. I'm not denying that there's a possibility that they're lying about the model of the Earth. I mean, they are liars. NASA means greatly to deceive.
Okay, well, according to the definition that you showed, NASA, being spelled NASA, means to lift, carry, and take. If it was spelled NASHA, I could see you making the leap to the negative connotation. You, sir, are trying to be deceitful. Now, as for the shape of the Earth, are you seriously saying that you doubt the Earth is a sphere? And where is your evidence for this, too? You seem to think that the Earth being round is some new idea put forth by NASA, you know, the evil space agency. Well, if you actually bothered to do any research in the matter, instead of just spewing bullshit that you seem to make up off the top of your fucking head, you might learn something. For example, that this guy, and I'm not even going to try to say his name because I know I'll butcher it. Well, he figured out the Earth was a sphere and even a rough measurement of the circumference of the Earth around 240 BC. This isn't new shit. This idea of a flat Earth was proven wrong over 2,000 years ago.
And even Hitler said it himself, make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they believe it. I mean, this is the establishment of the New World Order in every single institution. The schools, the medical, the TV, they make up big lies, they make it simple, they keep saying it over and over, and eventually all the sheeple end up believing it and falling for this reality that's created for them that is built on complete lies. All right, but I don't want to be too distracted with this because unless I'm missing it, I don't see a point. I mean, if the Earth is flat or round, what difference is that going to make in the establishment of the New World Order? There's Agenda 2030, there's weaponizing space, Big Brother, the fact that, well, the most important mission, people need to find out about the gospel of Jesus Christ, and this stuff can be a deviation. So I would just urge you to stay centered on priorities and what is important. But it's no surprise that there is so many lies that people are uncovering from NASA. John chapter 8 verse 44 says, "You are of your father the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer in the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies."
I'm going to step in here real quick. Using the Bible as evidence to show that the Bible is true is not evidence. It's circular reasoning and a logical fallacy. Please try again.
And his children, his little Nazi children, are liars, lying to us about why they're putting weapons into space, the agendas that they have, possibly even covering up the real model of the Earth. Who knows? But the important thing here is they are creating a prison planet. Another thing as well, I just wanted to shoot out there with this weaponizing of space. In the book of Revelation, chapter 19, verse 19, it talks about Jesus coming back, and it says, "And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies having been gathered together to make war with the one sitting on the horse and with his army." Jesus is coming back with an army, all right? And I don't know the technology or how they're going to fight, but look, they're going to make war. This is the battle of Armageddon. So I think that as we see technology develop, we are going to see the weapons of Antichrist being raised up in order to fulfill this biblical prophecy that when Jesus returns, they will make war with him. This beast system, which is this one world nation, will be gathered together, all the kings of the earth, and their armies, okay, gathered to make war against the one sitting on the horse, which is the the Lord Jesus Christ, who is coming back to damn and to pour out the wrath of God on a Christ-rejecting world. But I find it very interesting that they're weaponizing space in these days. The Bible talks about the fact that they're going to attempt to make war against Jesus. What a ridiculous thing to even attempt. But I mean, if you're going to be squashed like a little bug by the Almighty, I mean, you're going to try every little pathetic attempt in order to, change that course. But good luck on that there, lost, deluded Satanist. Just crazy. They actually show this in a movie too, Rapture Palooza, which is a movie about the rapture. It's a mocking of the rapture, one of the things that Hollyweird is consistently doing. You see a scene where they have this weapon and they make war against Jesus who comes on the horse. Look at the book of Revelation. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies having gathered together to make war against the one sitting on the horse. So they have a depiction of Jesus coming back, and they have this weapon to shoot him.
So now you seem to think that a B movie is evidence of some kind of conspiracy, and also I really doubt that Hollywood would put something that horrible out that looks like a kind of independent, shitty film. Yeah, just look at it.
This is going to be their pathetic little attempt, I believe. All right, they're going to do that and try and use the weapons of the Antichrist to make war against the one sitting on the horse. This is definitely not how it's going to play out. Hollywood twists it. He ends up being, overcame by the weapon. The weapon actually overcomes the judgment of God and Jesus. But, yeah, right. All right, so I just wanted to bring that up and kind of share that with you. I think it's important that we start investigating the weaponization of space and how that plays out in Bible prophecy. Don't get too caught up with the flat earth stuff. I've seen a lot of division and people. I don't see it being that important, and unless I'm missing something, if you can share that with me in the comment section, why this is utterly crucial and how this will really, affect the establishment of the New World Order, and that, I'd go ahead and leave a comment. But in terms of my research right now, it just looks like it could be just a distraction as well to, keep us occupied on something that really doesn't matter all that much while they're weaponizing space. Now, remember, the guy just said at the start here, they recognize that there is a split happening in society. The corporations they're going to be part of the New World Order. It's the elite, right? So it's all these rich international corporations that are going to collect together. There's a separation between the rich and the poor happening like no other. And that's just a reality. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And what's going to happen is there's going to be social unrest and all these things. So they want to build this police planet, weaponized space where they can target you, listen to everything, maybe even fire weapons down from space targeted. I mean, who knows, right? Yeah, I just wanted to share that with you all and see what you guys think about NASA's role in the establishment of the New World Order. It's kind of an interesting topic to me. We see a lot of propaganda in the media right now with these movies being created, going to Mars. Yeah, so I'm not spending too much time on this, but I am curious because I do see that it does play into the establishment of the Antichrist kingdom, which is one of the things I'm looking to expose and be watchful about its development. So, yeah, I'm interested to know what you all think. Thanks for taking the time. This is the Vigilant Christian saying God bless each and every one of you. As always, remember, stay vigilant and fear no evil.
Well, that's it, folks. Mario played part of a video that tells half-truths and lies. Then he doubles down with even more lies, unsubstantiated claims, then went full retard and brought up a flat earth, presented no evidence, and, well, he exposed nothing. Isn't that false advertising, since his video did say exposed? Well, there is no conspiracy about NASA. There's no conspiracy about where we got our rocket technology from, who played key roles in it, or any of that. There's no conspiracy about the shape of the Earth or any other claim that he's made. Again, Mario fails on his claim to expose something, and again, he just spewed bullshit without anything to back it up. Well, that's all I really have to say about this video. I hope you got a few good laughs and a few good face palms at some of the dumb shit that he said. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it if you want, and please hit that super cool little subscribe button down there. Well, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and take care.